Negotiations. Negotiations are getting what you want in a price that's acceptable to you. Joel Peterson. Purpose of negotiations are very important even though sometimes we don't think in them when we are negotiating. We have negotiated for all our lives. We have negotiated our permissions, our time of coming back home, our money, or salaries in some cases. But in business, negotiations need to have the purposes very clear. We need to obtain something, even money, information, or other things. We also need to improve the situation. For businessmen, there are 5 important things they always negotiate. They negotiate getting the best price, getting the most attractive terms, time frames for execution or deliveries, warranties are in place, and if things go wrong, got remedies for them.
Negotiation personality types. In the business world, people negotiate differently, taking into account so many facts that determine the correct manner to acquire wonderful results in this kind of process. In commercial negotiation, it's normal to find people that negotiate quickly and take risk. There are others that prefer to do it with more time in order to reduce the risk. In order to develop an effective business communication, don't forget an important item, the sincerely, because in this way, the person that you pretend to persuade will feel convinced with you. Everyone has diverse personality types. Some are hard driving, others are more relaxed, and finally, others use humor as a defensive of an effective way to persuade someone. Generally, those kinds of personality types can give win or lose situations. The big 5 personality types are: number 1, neuroticism, which is associated with being anxious, depressed, worried, and insecure. Number 2 is extroversion, which is associated with being sociable, assertive, talkative, and active. Number 3 is opens to experience, which is associated with being imaginative, curious, original, and open-minded. In the 4th place, we have agreeableness, which is associated with being courteous, reflexive, trusting, cooperative, and tolerant. And final, in the position number 5, we have conscientious, which is associated with being careful, responsible, and organized.
In order to get positive results from a negotiation, the participants must be aware of the existence of general protocols and a base vocabulary. It can be seen as silly to pay attention on these variables, but content is not relevant when negotiations are not even finished because proper practice is not followed. There is a big difference between the way people talk in a birthday party, a romantic dinner, and a negotiation. It has to be clarified what the negotiation is about, so participants can inform themselves about the technicalities and jargon. It is important to keep in mind that asking questions is a key way to obtain information from the counterpart. According to this, there are some types of questions to get specific results, like open-ended questions, close or narrowing questions, clarifying questions, and expanding questions. It has to be remembered that a negotiation is inside a formal basis, so the language that should be used in it is formal. Since a negotiation keeps a battle of interest, participants have to talk to each other with respect, so it can be carried as best as possible. Within that talk, It is appropriate to use statements such as declarative statements, reflective statements, statements of mind, and statements of interest. On the other hand, negotiations protocol may vary depending on cultures. This is kind of ironic because it is so a protocol is a standard, something that is always done, so it would not present so many changes. In contrast, participants of the negotiation have to know how each culture behaves in a situation like that. Besides, negotiations protocol can be defined as a four-stage process. During the first stage, which is called relational positioning, relationships are determined by general approaches. Then it appears the second stage, which is called identifying the problem. This stage is expected to be characterized by reciprocal exchange of priority information as negotiators focus on the negotiation issues, options, and underlying interests, build trust, and begin a serious search for an agreement. The third stage is focused on generating solutions. This stage is a distinct, energetic, even passionate stage, with parties shifting between a focus on integrating information and influencing the outcome. Finally, the fourth stage is named reaching agreement, and by this time, negotiators should have sufficient information to construct offers and to be reasonably confident that an agreement is possible. Examples of business protocol and etiquette skills include knowledge of proper business dining and entertaining, business communications including introductions, correspondence, conversation, telephone and electronic etiquette, appropriate professional dress, business gift-giving, networking, meeting and conference etiquette, and non-verbal communication such as posture, handshaking, and eye contact.
Types of negotiation. It is important to have in mind that the outcomes of any negotiation are influenced depending on the negotiation approach executed by the parties. Different authors, such as Deborah Nelson, professor of Oklahoma State University, have agreed on distinguishing between two broad negotiation approaches: the distributive or competitive approach and the integrative or collaborative approach. In the distributive or competitive approach, the goals of one party are in direct conflict with the goals of the other party. It is known also as win-lose negotiation, sum-zero game, or the fixed pie, because in this type of negotiations the resources are limited and each party focuses on maximizing its own benefit, or pie, while granting only enough to its opponent to obtain a basic agreement. Building a good relationship with the other party is not an important concern, and the only information that a party shares is the one that increases its chances of winning. This competitive orientation can be unfolded into two directions: the hard distributive negotiation and the soft distributive negotiation. The first one takes place when each party seeks dominance over the other and tries to maximize self-interest. And the second one takes place when both parties make concessions just to get things over with. On the other hand, the integrative or collaborative approach has the following characteristics. Unlike the distributive orientation, parties focuses on finding solutions to achieve both objectives. This approach is also known as win-win negotiations, or as non-zero-sum game. In here, parties accept they have common interests, thus they are willing to share information. This is an approach that emphasizes on the merits of the issue, and in which the collaborating parties search for ways to increase the total payoff or pie.
Here, Colombia has tried to develop the economy, reinforcing the existing economical bonds between the most important allies like Canada, the whole European Union, and probably the most important ally in the century, the United States. But these aren't the only negotiations that are currently in the international agenda of Colombia. For example, the conflict of San Andres and Providencia with Nicaragua. This is one of the most important and controversial conflicts of Colombia in this decade. conflict is not only for the apparent disadvantage of the island, like the fishing and the tourism then, the advantages go deeper. Under the sea, in this area exist some oil reserves that does not was exploited yet, and Nicaragua wants its own take all this oil. On this day, there still exists arrangement for this conflict that apparently is not going to end yet. One of the most important free trade agreements that benefits Colombia and its trade partners is the whole European Union. The possible impacts that will come to Colombia with the print of this free trade agreement is zero barriers for agricultural products means that most of the exporters will enjoy with the growth of the export and income, and the consumers in Colombia could have benefits of cheaper European products.